I'll record to my computer. All right. Okay, I think we're recording now. All right, so I think this is going to be us. This is the meeting of the ad hoc committee on walkability, and so it's July 20th at 4 o'clock. And I will just do a quick roll call. Grant Wilson said that he would not be able to join us today. He had a last-minute death in the family, so he is not going to be joining us. And so we have Greg is on the line, and we've got Jennifer Futterman on the line. And we've also got Roger Paleo from KOA Consulting, and so they're going to be the ones that are supporting this process on behalf of SCAG. And so anyway, so this meeting is primarily to just catch up with what they've been doing, and I wanted to share it, kind of preview it with you guys, and we're also going to talk a little bit about it tomorrow at the commission meeting. So wanted to just kind of get a little bit of feedback from you today, and then we'll get some more feedback from the full group tomorrow. Let's see, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Share my screen. So many possibilities here, except for the things that I want. All right. So does everybody see the collision analysis memo? Or are you seeing?
Open it up.
Are you seeing the?
We're saying this. You need to open it up. You're saying the name, but not the mem.
Yeah. So I got to share something differently. All right.
Well, you emailed those to us, so I have it open on my computer.
Okay. All right. You've got it all. All right.
Yeah, I think if you open it first and then share it.
Yep. So it was weird. It wasn't popping up on my options to share.
There it is.
Yep. So that's the collision analysis memo. So so two of the things, and I'm gonna pause my sharing, share pause. Basically for the past couple of months since we had our initial kickoff meeting with KOA, we've been working with them on some data collection and analysis, and we've also been working with them to try to start to identify the potential members of the Community Advisory Committee. And so we've kind of gone back and forth on some names and some organizations based on the initial work that we did as part of the proposal. And then we've also been working with them a little bit on the schedule. So I think the schedule is still a little bit in flux, but I wanted to go through with you at least kind of have Roger maybe walk us through the collision analysis memo and kind of where that data comes from and how it might be used in this process. And then also talk a little bit about the public engagement side of things, especially given where we are with COVID and where we think things might be headed in the fall. So I wanted to get a little bit of thoughts and ideas from you guys to the extent that you have them. So Roger, why don't we talk a little bit just about the collision analysis memo first, and maybe share with us a little bit of background on it and how we might use that moving forward, and maybe what some of the pieces are.
Yeah, definitely. So we did the pretty thorough collision analysis, and we looked at pedestrian and bicycle collisions within the city. So in that, our goal is to identify any hotspot locations that we need to further address. There is a call for walkability audits. So this is one of the tools that we utilize to identify some of those hotspots. I'm not going to go into great detail because there's a lot of information that is within this memo, but on screen you're seeing the spot locations for the pedestrian collision analysis. If you could scroll down, Patrick, I want to just take a quick look at the legend. So this is a citywide pedestrian and bicycle. So red is bike, orange is pedestrian. Now this plan is strictly for pedestrian and safe route to school, but we also wanted to take a look at any bicycle collisions because they may play a good factor of some of the problem areas at certain locations. So continue scrolling down, Patrick.
Yep.
So we looked at from, is it 2014 or 2018? 2013.
Yep.
Yeah, 2014 to 2018, and took a look at all the collisions for those years and kind of identified what years were peak, so we could start looking again at the collision factors. Continue scrolling down. Bicycle collision. So we took a look at the fatal, severe injury, fatal, and severe injury combined. There we go. So I want to get to the pedestrian ones. So the pedestrians one, the collisions were pretty eye-opening just because when we took a look at the time of day, it's clear that a lot of the collisions happen in the evening, whereas the cyclist, most of the collisions occur in the morning. Based on what I've been talking to Patrick and looking at the climate conditions, this correlates with what is occurring in the evening. A lot of walkers go out in the evening just because it's much cooler around that time. Continue going. And so this memo really breaks down every for a bike and ped, very similar. So as I mentioned before, the bicyclist, the collisions occur in the very in the morning from, let's see, from 6 to 11. We see most of the collisions occur. Some in the evening, but primarily in the morning. So we took a look at the severity type as part of this analysis. So this analysis will again help identify the spot treatments. So this one, pedestrian collision by severity, so fatal and severe injury. So these are the primary locations where we really want to focus our attention to. So we have Ramona Boulevard and the Calle Rincon, or where, there we go.
That one, Caballeros, and I think that's Sunrise. That's Sunrise.
Yeah, Sunrise.
Yep.
So those are, that's one location where there's been a lot of fatal and severe collisions.
Right.
But as we scroll through the document, we highlighted a few of the segments that have a lot of collisions as well. This table just identifies some of the collision factors for pedestrians involved. So pedestrian violation, pedestrian right of way. So those are the top heavy collision factors
So,
reasons why.
so does that mean like for 67 of these, that basically somebody was crossing at the wrong place or something like that?
Yes.
Okay. And then what does pedestrian right-of-way mean? That they occurred in the pedestrian right-of-way?
Correct.
Okay.
That could mean if it was in a crosswalk, then a vehicle came in.
Right. So that's really interesting. So that tells us that at least for a majority of these cases, or for a good portion of them, the problem arises when people aren't basically following the directions of whatever it is, whatever
Yeah.
the street signage is. But it could also mean that we need some more things in different places too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And this is the same for the bicycles?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And concept for bicycles.
So this is the wrong side of the road means that the bike was traveling on the wrong side of the road, right?
Yes.
Okay. Right.
So here we are, the top 5 pedestrian-involved collision intersections. So Sonora Road and South Palm Canyon Drive, Ramona Road and Sunrise, as it was identified on the map. But these are primary targets of locations that we want to take a look at to see in more detail of why collisions are occurring at these locations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
And
on the
also,
Ramon Road and Sunrise, it's going to also be important to
Mhm.
look at how many of those occurred before the street light was put in to the Ralph's parking lot, because that was a problem area because people would always cross from the library park over to the Ralph's shopping center, and that's why that street light was put in there. And so I'd be interested to see how many of those were pre-stoplight collisions, and now that that's gone in, has that solved that problem?
I wonder though if it's saying Ramon Road and Sunrise, it's the other direction, like going across to the Western Dental, because I see a lot of jaywalkers right there.
Yeah.
You know, crossing Ramon rather.
Yeah, I think that area is one that it's one of our hotspots. So I think we're going to really need to break it down in terms of the specifics of those incidents and the locations, because that's also where we have several requests for additional crosswalks and lights. So that's when we'll really have to break down and get into the details.
you guys know when the street light was installed?
I don't remember exactly, but it was, I think, within the last 2 years.
I'll bet it's been 3 years.
Do you think so?
Yeah. We can ask engineering and find out.
Yeah.
Or streets, maintenance.
Yeah, because if it has been for 3 years ago, then we could probably take a quick look at the data and see, before and after, see if there has been an improvement.
Yeah, I'm guessing it was before 2014 because I don't remember it going in. I remember it always being there.
Okay. So this is a quick look at the top corridors that we also want to focus on. So Ramon Road has a total of 20. That's one of the highest one and it also has one of the highest severe and fatal combined.
Yeah, that makes sense because those are also our busiest streets, really, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So can you explain this one again? Because this is sort of a different version of that map.
Yeah. So what this is essentially a heat map of where collisions are occurring in the city. So just a different style of a map that we can produce, where it shows us, you know, where if it's a corridor sense, you can look at Palm Canyon Drive. There's a lot more collisions occurring along that corridor, as well as Ramona or Ramon Road. So it helps us visualize a trend in an area. Bicycle, we don't have to really go into great detail on this.
Right. But again, there's a consistency here between the pedestrian and the bike collision.
Yeah.
It seems like.
The pedestrian, or sorry, bicycle heat map.
Right.
So for cyclists, they primarily want to travel on the larger roads, and that's why you'll see the heat map. It shows the collisions along the larger roads where they travel. So is it Ramon, Palm Canyon Drive, Tekowitz, Vistachino?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. So I think that that will serve as a good point of reference for the process as we go forward in terms of what we think, where we think our problem areas are. And I guess the thing that, and actually I would ask Jennifer and Greg, anything that is surprising about this, like any places that you thought might show up on these kinds of maps that isn't?
No, it looks pretty much where I expected there would be trouble.
Right.
Yeah, same.
Okay. All right.
Looks like the traffic
Now
light
one
went in
thing
May or June of 2015.
What's that?
The traffic light at Rouse went in May or June of 2015.
Oh, okay.
Now, one thing we also plan on taking a look at is citation data.
Right.
So that gives us a preview of what could have occurred. It gives us a good understanding of if there's areas where there's a hotspot of vehicles not adhering to the pedestrian right of way, or pedestrians jaywalking or whatnot. So that'll give us another idea of where problem areas could be. It's unfortunate that, you know, TIMS doesn't really collect that data. All we see is, you know, the collisions. But if we overlap those two data features, then we'll be able to get a much clearer picture of more solid areas. So we're working on getting the data so we can analyze it. So we'll provide an updated map on top of this that combines both locations, and kind of it'll be a much more clear picture of what is occurring as well.
Great. All right. Any other questions on that document? Okay, let me hop over to the other one. All right, so this is the outreach and engagement plan. And so we've had a couple conversations with KOA about this, and acknowledging the challenges that we've got on a couple of fronts. So one is just getting people engaged at this time, and you know, kind of trying to figure out how we do a community advisory committee without being able to get together. So, so there's that. But there's also the idea that this whole process may be different because of the lack of people in the city over the next, you know, 6 to 8 months, I guess. So anyway, so those are things that we're keeping in mind as we go forward here. But one of the things we thought it would be helpful to do is start to nail down the community advisory committee so that we could move forward with some sort of meetings this fall. So when people get back in the saddle in September, October timeframe. So, so I wanted to just touch base on that. And go down to that section. So this group will be involved in kind of reviewing the documents that are produced and the results of the information that's collected and help giving us input and guidance on things to think about and on project criteria and things like that. And the primary, let me go down to the list. I think the list is actually in the attachment, sorry. So we gave people, or we gave KOA an initial list of organizations in the RFP, and then we worked with them a little bit to identify some names or associate some names with these organizations. So this attachment is currently is our best thinking so far about who might be engaged or invited to this process. And in some cases, it's maybe a starting point. So, for instance, Joelle, either Joelle or I think Francisco will actually be involved from the engineering department. And then we were thinking of Sunline Transit would be an important member, and so we identified somebody from there. The Tribal Council, so Kate Anderson is the person who does the most of the PR and outreach for the tribe. And so we included her name here, but again, she may refer us to somebody else. And then Anthony Ramirez is, I guess, the Economic Development Project Manager. So he would be a good person because I think we're primarily concerned about the arena development and the casino downtown. So, and how that contributes to the pedestrian safety issues. And then we had at least one person from the Sustainability Commission. We identified Roy because he was on the 1PS committee that's on pedestrian safety, so we included him as well. And then we had Rob's name here as vice chair, but I don't know that whoever it is needs to be Rob. So we could have a couple of commission members on this group. And I can't remember, Roger, did we include this group? We did not include on the community advisory committee. But again, we could have one of you guys on this community advisory committee as opposed to Rob, so that we could then kind of bring information back to this little group. So, and then we thought about the PTA, having people involved in the schools from the school district. And we haven't reached out to any of these people, so I don't know if you guys know them, but or if you have better suggestions for some of them, then that would be welcome. We also have the PS Cares group. David Carden has been pretty active in promoting public safety for a while, and they do various events. And then Kate Rice, I don't know who, she's just the secretary. So again, we would start with David and see if somebody else from that organization also wants to be part of this group. And then Brett Klein is actually with a K, not a C. And he and Vic are two of our go-to people on the biking front. And so I guess a question, Roger, for you and for us is if, you know, we don't if we're not really focused on biking, how do we want to engage that group in this process?
Well, I think what we want to do is tap into their organization and their, the broad spectrum of folks that they may know. So let them know, some of the cyclists may be walkers as well. They may know someone that is into walking or running. Normally it goes hand in hand sometimes. So reaching out to them, giving them the tools and allowing them the opportunity to provide their feedback to us. I think that's how we can tap into that particular group.
So I guess my only thought about that is if we're going to prioritize pedestrian safety, and then we'll need to have a separate process for prioritizing bike safety issues, because we've gotten a lot of feedback from them in the past on various places and issues. So I wouldn't want to lose that. And if there's a way to, if there's overlap between those two, then we could certainly address them kind of in a package. But I think that we need to get some input on that so that we could have a separate running list if we need to, or an overlapping list to the extent that it overlaps.
Yeah. So what we could do is set up the web app mapping tool to allow the user to select if it's either a pedestrian concern or a bicycle concern, so we can still collect it.
Okay. All right. Let's see, and then we had a couple of reps from 1PS, and I don't know, Jennifer and Greg, I don't know if you've been involved in processes where you've tried to involve 1PS, but there are 50 organizations that are part of that. And I think we just put Kathy and Dawn down here because they were kind of the leadership team. But do you guys have any experience or thoughts about how we might engage with 1PS more broadly on this? It's a challenge to not make this group too big and unwieldy versus getting some good representation on it.
So our thought was to include one or two members from 1PS so they can go back to their organization and relay the message there, because we certainly don't want to make this group too large. I would like to keep it, 10, 15 max members for the CAC.
Right.
Seems like our chair has been typically, the one that's been taking information to 1PS and bringing information back and forth. But
right.
I think I think what you have here, having the chair and vice chair, is probably sufficient. And then I don't know. What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, or one of them and Roy, because
Right.
Roy has kind of been our liaison with them for the commission.
Right. Okay.
He seems really happy to do that. So
Yeah. No, he's all about that. All right. And then, we can certainly get feedback from these folks about their thoughts too. And then we've got this front runners group and running and walking group. So we just identified who the organization leads are for that. And then the Chamber of Commerce people, because again, a lot of these are kind of fronting businesses. A lot of these problems areas are kind of fronting businesses. And then of course, Main Street merchants, and we included Joy, and there was this Gail Whetstone who was involved in reporting out on health-related issues from traffic and accidents, and so we included her name here. She's with Desert Regional. So
back on the runners, does anyone have experience working with them in the past?
this group?
Yeah.
I don't.
No, I don't either.
Familiar with them.
Okay.
I'm familiar with the group, but I think it would be good to have them represent a
Yep.
stakeholder group, but I haven't ran with them.
Okay.
And then, yeah,
Has there been any thought of, you know, Grace Garner's district probably has the largest number of bus users and walkers and people without cars. And it might be useful to run this list past her to see if there's anyone that she thinks should be on it. She's held some Zoom community meeting for her district and has had some very good diverse representation on those calls. And I think we want to ensure that we have economic and racial diversity on this group also.
yeah, I agree. Sure, we can. I can do that. All right, super.
We also
Okay.
need,
Anything else to think about on this front? Yeah. Okay. All right. And then can you just, Roger, can you just explain at a high level kind of these ideas for these workshops and events and audits, just so people understand what they're for? And
yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So we have, within our scope of work, we have 2 workshops. Now, depending on how COVID goes, we may be able to have an in-person meeting later on, or maybe not. So these are just locations of what we want to do. So either being a Zoom or City Hall meeting. The first meeting we would give an intro and some preliminary concepts of what we want to do in the plan. The second workshop would be actually presenting a draft plan at the workshop. The events, we have 4 events that we would have in a perfect world attended and collected feedback from the community. But depending if these events still go on or they don't, then we'll have to come up with a different strategy on how we plan on collecting comments. So we're still thinking about how we would do that. But you know, with COVID-19, every day is changing. So this is one strategy that will be evolving as we go along. But the third and final piece is what we call walkability audits. Now, these are audits where traditionally we go out to the field with a group and walk the location, identify any special concerns, document those concerns by either writing down on maps or taking pictures and then having a whole discussion at the end. There is an option to do a virtual walk audit. Same concept, we just use virtual tools. We use Google Earth, go out, use Street View, and then we could document any concerns on our GIS online platform. So that is something that we could transition to virtually pretty easily. Now, I think one of the things that we were hoping to accomplish, and we may need a little bit more time on this, but getting you guys' thoughts on possible locations to do a walkability audit. We had identified some preliminary locations. So the downtown being one, a transit hub, Francis Stevens Park, and a civic center. But you know, these are just placeholders. We could definitely update these on if there's any specific location that you guys feel strongly that should be a walkability audit location.
So can you just clarify what the purpose of the audit is and what you do during an audit? Like, is this you're out there talking to people, or is this you're actually walking the street to see if you have problems walking around?
Yeah. So it's a little bit of both. We do general observations. If there is people walking around, we do ask them to see if there's any special concerns that they may encounter walking in the area. But we also walk with a group of folks. So we would invite members of the community and also invite the CAC out to these locations and do a walk around and identify any special concerns that are in the area. So for example, if there's broken sidewalks, we want to document it, take pictures. If there's connectivity issues, meaning there's not a safe place to cross at a certain distance from intersection to intersection. If there's not enough lighting, signage, anything that makes it unsafe for a pedestrian to walk in the area, we want to identify.
And you said that you could do that virtually, and you do that basically by kind of walking through Google Earth and kind of walking the path as you would have normally. Yeah.
It takes a little bit longer, obviously, because we're using technology, but we could save some time as well in the end. Doing the virtual audit actually gives us a larger area that we can cover, just because we're not out there in the heat and walking around. So we could certainly cover a lot more area in the virtual walk audit.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's one thing to consider for these walkability audits.
All right. And the other thing I wanted to mention on here and see if you guys had any input on. So they gave us a couple of ideas for, we'll eventually create like a website and have some materials that we produce, and wanted to get some input on kind of logo and that kind of thing. So you guys have any feelings about the various options here? From the black and white to the colorway 1, colorway 2, and then the 2 different logo images.
I definitely like the colorway 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And the only difference between these two is this has people and this one doesn't. Right.
I like the people.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we sort of zeroed in on in our meeting. So. All right, sounds good.
That one really feels like Palm Springs, just the colors, it's bright, it's stands out. The black and white just does not, it doesn't pop enough, and the one in the middle is kind of drowns out, I don't know, but I like the sunny Palm Springs.
Exactly. All right. And I think that's about all we got for right now, right?
Yeah.
So
I think we wanted to get a understanding, Patrick, of any possible locations that we should consider for the walkability on it.
Right. So let me go back to that list. Second, sorry. So again, kind of given what you said about the purpose, I don't know if, well, what would you guys consider a transit hub? The only place that really came to my mind was like the corner of Ramon and Indian Canyon, where we always have buses sitting there. But I don't know. I mean, Greg, you take the bus a lot, I think. Do you have a sense of another place we would call it transit hub?
We consider a transit hub where there's different bus lines that connect with each other. Mm-hmm. That's where we'll see a lot more pedestrian activity.
Yeah, that definitely the stop at the high school has a lot of routes that meet there.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and that coincided with one of our hotspots, definitely, around between Farrell and Sunrise on Ramon.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Where's, by Civic Center, where do you exactly need?
Are you talking about the convention center, Roger?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is
Yeah,
that really a problem area?
I wouldn't include that one.
Yeah. Yeah, that one.
It's not necessarily a problem area, but that's where we would envision there would be a lot of pedestrian activity. So we would want to review it in case there is an uptick of more pedestrian activity, just in case to identify any further possible concerns.
Yeah. So it actually raises an interesting question because although I have experienced high pedestrian traffic there during events, like if you go over there for that crazy cheerleading event that happens every year, they are everywhere. And so that's the kind of situation where I think, yeah, that could present some problems. But in general, it's pretty quiet over there. People park in the parking lot and just basically cross the street right there, and that's about it. And then it's sort of on a related note is the arena project. If that actually moves forward, that would be a sort of event-driven pedestrian activity. So I would think that there would be a huge amount of pedestrian activity during like before and after an event, which we would want to think about, but otherwise it's probably a pretty quiet part of town.
Is that going to move forward?
You know,
It's
they
on
put it
hold
on
right now.
hold, and it's unclear. I think it's to be determined, although they seem to have gotten the green light from the hockey league for something. So anyway, so I'm not sure where they're at with it.
Another place I see a lot of foot traffic when there's an event at this convention center is along Tockwitz between the convention center and downtown.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of visitors, it seems like they use that pathway wherever they're staying to get to the convention center. And
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yep. So that's maybe something we could talk about a little bit more in terms of event-driven pedestrian traffic versus kind of the normal day-to-day sort of traffic area or problem areas. So I think the that transit corridor maybe between Farrell and Sunrise on Ramon is probably a good one in terms of thinking about a transit hub potentially. And then, and that might include Sunrise there and Ramon where we've got a hotspot. And then downtown, I think the hotspot or the heat map was pretty clear that it's kind of around that Tockwitz area, most likely because that's where a lot of the folks go to the restaurants and things like that. So maybe towards the southern end of downtown versus the northern.
Yeah, the place though where all the buses are at the high school is on Baristo.
Oh, that's right. It's over on that other side. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a good point.
and this is probably, it may not have to do with our concerns here, but that intersection that you're talking about, Tockwitz and Palm Canyon, where if you're in there's like 2 lanes and one is closer to the Coffee Bean and one you would turn left on Palm Canyon. But a lot of tourists don't understand that if you're in that right lane that it goes across.
Mm-hmm.
And that may cause confusion. I mean, I'm not sure how it would affect pedestrians because there's a light there, but it's definitely confusing to people that don't know the area.
Right. All right. And then I do think, based on what you said earlier, Greg, I don't know if there's like a zone that we're not capturing on the north end of town. Certainly, Gene Autry and Vistacino, we've had some issues there. and then it looked like Vistachino and Caballeros or something.
Vistachino
Miro.
and Sunrise has a lot of foot traffic.
Yeah, it does.
Because of all of the malls there and the Desert Aid Center and all of that. And then there's the whole north Indian Canyon place is mainly a problem because the sidewalks come and go. So you either have to walk on the road or through dirt and weeds.
Where is that?
On North Indian Canyon.
Okay.
Like north of the hospital up as far as San Rafael.
Right.
I mean, I see people having to push strollers through the dirt.
Okay. All right. Any other audit location thoughts? You know, the one that I've been noticing a lot more lately is mostly because I live there is the South Pond Canyon near the curve. So it's kind of, I would describe it as between Mesquite and the South Palm Canyon, East Palm Canyon curve. There's a lot of people that walk across those streets, like to Steinmart, to the liquor store, a lot of homeless activity down in that part of town. So we see a lot of people just milling about. So there is, I feel like there's a growing amount of pedestrian traffic there, mostly right now, because there's a lot of homeless there, because that's the hotels that they're using for that COVID stays are right there too. So. And I know that's a bike safety area too. That's
right.
All right.
I'm curious to ask the group, is there any areas where you guys feel pedestrian infrastructure is well represented in the city?
Downtown.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised to see the number of accidents downtown, because I do feel like in general those the pedestrian flow is pretty good around there. I think that the new, one of the things that I've really liked is the new 5-second delay on Indian Canyon with the cross lights. So the walk light goes, and then 5 seconds later the light turns, so that you start to turn right. So it actually clears out the pedestrians that want to walk across the street, and then you can actually turn right down those streets. So I think the improvements that they've made along Indian Canyon in terms of managing the flow of traffic and of people has been pretty good. So
like a pedestrian lead interval?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, so part of this project we'll be developing almost like what we call a toolkit of pedestrian infrastructure improvements. So we'll run it by this group.
Yep.
I don't know of any amendments that have been made on the Indian Canyon, but remember Greg, there was a bunch of like sidewalk kind of issues where we had walked
right
there, and it wasn't very walkable.
Was it towards the north end or?
Towards south.
Oh, was it?
Going towards Ramon.
Mm.
I haven't been down there though, and I'm not.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm trying
I haven't walked it again either, so it might have been improved with the road improvements. I was like south of Arenas to the where all those roads come together near Revivals.
Oh yeah, that has been improved a little bit, and the pedestrian flow is definitely different there now. So that may have been improved. But you do see that is another place where you do see a lot of people walking in inappropriate places to dart across the street.
Right.
Whether it's to that plaza, over to the gas station or Starbucks or something, or on the way back.
But also where you were talking about where that bus, the transit hub is on Indian, across from there where there's Woody's and kind of those odd little businesses there. I just remember that there was the sidewalk. I don't know if I'm remembering right. It seemed kind of broken and it's hard. It wasn't a smooth sidewalk.
Right. I think it's kind of gridded there or something. It's weird.
Yeah.
These are all good ideas. So when we roll out with the web mapping tool, well, definitely you guys could provide your input on there.
Right.
Really appreciated.
Okay. Have either of you guys heard anything from that volunteer PS Cares group lately? David Carden.
No.
Heard from him a lot last year. I would hear from him occasionally last year, but then I haven't heard anything from him in like 6 months. So
I have not.
okay. All right. Anything else, Roger, that would be helpful? And we'll have a little bit more focused conversation tomorrow with the full group. We're not going to go through the collision locations. We're just going to kind of talk through the community advisory committee concept and focus people mainly on that for tomorrow.
No, I think that for now, this is the work that we've been working on so far. We're fairly in the initial stages of it, so we're still doing a lot of data collection, data analysis, part of things. So I think the main thing where we'll definitely want some of you guys' input is when we roll out the web mapping tool to the general public, just to kind of get the word out that everyone goes out there and utilizes that online platform to document their safety concerns, because that's what will kind of drive us looking at possible recommendations for spot treatments and locations. So.
Okay. All right. Super. Any other questions you guys have for Roger or for us?
No, it's nice to see this progress.
Yeah, it's moving along, and we had a lot of existing data. The other thing, just FYI, the other thing that we're putting together is to the extent that we've received requests for improvements of sidewalks or crosswalks or anything like that, we're trying to put together that list that we've received so far, so we have a good starting point.
Great.
Okay. All right. I think that's it then. I guess we will adjourn, and we will see everybody again tomorrow at 5:30. Okay.
Great.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Roger.
guys.
All
All right. Appreciate it.
See you guys.
right. Bye.
Night. Stop recording.